Welcome, everyone. I am delighted and grateful that you made the time to be here tonight or today, depending on where you are. This session is the third session in a series of 8 planned events on the use of hypnotic techniques in coaching. And the technique that we're discussing today, image streaming, even if you're not a coach, this is a great technique to use not only for yourself, but anyone that you want to work with and you want them to develop their own imaginative powers. Before we start, recordings of all of the sessions will be posted to the YouTube channel. And if you are not aware of it yet, just drop me a note or an email, and I will point you towards that YouTube channel. And you can either go and watch those sessions if you've missed them live, or if you wanted to listen to them again, you're very welcome to do that. Now, imagine for a moment that there was a thinking technique that expanded your imaginative awareness, that had the potential to increase your IQ intelligence by almost 1 point for every hour of practice. And it gave you the ability to transform your world beyond the ordinary to the extraordinary. Would you be interested in learning it? And as a coach or facilitator, teach it and use it with your clients. Good. Then you are in the right place. Now, to start today, I would like for all of us to join in an exercise just to slow down and calm the mind away from the hustle and bustle of everyday busyness, and embrace, if you will, the deeper peace and calm of connection with your unconscious mind. It is a simple technique which you can use to slow down and even create a light trance state. And it is something that your unconscious already know how to do. Breathe. And we all know how to breathe unconsciously. And we don't even have to think about it. We just know it happens when we notice it. So here's a simple technique, and you can decide to close your eyes now or later, whichever is best for you. But you also know that the unconscious world is an inner world, and the inner world where your unconscious knows how to communicate with the inner eye, undisturbed by the open eye, which is blind to the inner world. So give yourself permission to look with the eyes of your unconscious and close your eyes now. Settle back, settle down, and breathe. Take a deep breath in and out, and another in and out. And keep breathing like this for a few moments. In a moment, I will give you more instructions. Breathing in and out. And I want you to start changing your breathing to something that Dr. Win Wenger calls velvety smooth breathing. Breathing in and out smoothly, so that there is no pause between the in-breath and out-breath and in-breath. In and out. almost like stroking a strip of velvet cloth, smooth, soft, breathing in and out, luxurious, warm, relaxed, breathing in and out. So in a moment, I will count for you and follow me on the count. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 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 and rest, keeping your eyes closed until I ask you to come back, but not yet. And just resume breathing in a comfortable way while you are adapting to your usual way of breathing. Just notice how you feel now. That's right. The smoothness that the breath creates is a light trance within, which we can replenish with what we most need: breath, relaxation, peace, imagination, all with the breath. And anytime you want to create space for yourself, breathe and notice with the breath. Just notice. Notice your body. Become aware of all of your body and how the breath follows its path into your lungs. And for a moment, notice how that feels. Breathing air into your lungs. Feel how your chest expands and contracts. And breathe in a little deeper. And notice how your belly rises with the in-breath and how it subsides with the out-breath. You may even notice how a good breath almost push against the inside of your ribs. Breathing in and out. And while you are breathing, just become aware of the sounds. Sounds on your left, on your right, in front of you, even behind you, all around you. And the taste on your tongue in this moment, running your tongue across your teeth, tasting and feeling the air on your skin, noticing how different that feels from the feelings inside. Your body knows how to feel, how to hear, how to taste, how to touch. And keeping your eyes closed and seeing with the mind's eye. And notice, if you will, a dream or a picture or both. And I'm asking you to join me in a little adventure of the mind. And imagine yourself standing on the inside of a door, a familiar door, your door, which begs to be opened. But before we do, really look at that door. See it, maybe for the first time in years, what it really looks like. Every detail, down to the color, the texture. Look closely. Even take a deep breath and savor the smell of it. And enjoy that for a moment, knowing that when you open this door, you will embark on another adventure of the mind and feel the excitement and anticipation, listening to the sound of this door, your door, creaking open. Now, and slowly in your mind's eye, look and see in front of you, slowly appearing, a path leading down into a forest between plants and trees, smelling the smoky flavor of a wood fire somewhere burning. And in the fresh, crisp air of an early spring morning, feel the energy in your body, almost tingling from head to toe, eagerly wanting to explore this path in front of you, taking the first step and then a second, walking down a path, your path, seeing the beauty of nature, hearing the sounds of small animals in the undergrowth, among bird song and leaves rustling in the breeze, arriving at a space where suddenly this path opens into a clearing, showing you a magnificent view over a beautiful valley and a river that runs through it. And you feel that this is a safe space, your safe space. Nothing can harm you here. And when you need peace and tranquility, this is where you can come in your mind anytime when you need it. So take a good look at this beautiful view. Take in as much as you can. Remember what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and take in another deep breath of all that fresh air and come back to the here and now. Open your eyes, stretch out your body, and welcome. Today, we will discuss image streaming as another hypnotic technique for the use in coaching to connect and expand your coaching clients' imaginative awareness. But before we discuss image streaming in detail, I want to remind you of our session for next week. In part 4 of this series, we will discuss quantum jumping. And it is a technique I found a few years ago when I became interested in theories of the multiverse or the many worlds theory. This theory presents a view that many parallel worlds exist simultaneously, and in each of these worlds, there potentially is a version of you which is similar to you but different. Because at a crucial decision point, this other version of you took a different path to the you here and now. And using this theory as a metaphor, there will exist versions of you which may be wiser, more experienced, and more successful in worlds very similar to ours. And imagine if you could have a conversation with them. You could learn perspectives that can create possibilities for you here and now. This is a technique that I've adapted from the work of Bert Goldman, and I look forward to having fun with those next week. Image streaming is a technique that allows you to consciously connect with your unconscious mind to expand your awareness in the present moment. As we discussed in the first part of this series, your unconscious mind is a reservoir of all your experiences, feelings, thoughts, urges, and memories. It multitasks, is intuitive, it connects experiences, thoughts, feelings, and ideas. It transcends time and space, it has unlimited focus, and it continuously perceives what is happening around you. And it translates your feelings and emotions into thoughts and actions. And by consciously bringing it into your awareness with input from all your senses, you can create learning and insights that are beyond the rational conscious experience. Albert Einstein believed that you could stimulate ingenious thought simply by allowing your imagination to float freely and unrestrained by conventional inhibitions. In his book, The Einstein Factor, Dr. Win Wenger tells the story of Albert Einstein, who at the age of 16 asked himself the question, what would it be like to run beside a beam of light at the speed of light? And then he proceeded to play with this question for 10 years. And from this story, we learn two things. The first is that there are questions that interest us that are worth asking. And you can use your imagination to come up with great speculative questions to pique your interest. The second thing we learn is to give ourselves time and space to live with an interesting question. And an interesting question does not have to be answered immediately. It can be a work in progress for as long as you allow it. Now, the story about Albert Einstein doesn't end there, though. After playing with this question for 10 years, Einstein opened up new avenues of thought and even more questions. And the new questions brought him closer and closer to what would be a world-changing discovery. After some years of work, his question expanded to, what would happen if you were riding on the end of a light beam and you held up a mirror in front of you? Now, the obvious answer is that you would see no reflection because the light leaving your face would have to travel faster than light to reach the mirror. Now, a lesser being may have accepted not seeing yourself in a mirror while traveling at the speed of light. But Einstein would not accept this. He boldly proceeded and envisioned a universe in which he could see himself in the mirror while traveling at the speed of light. And then, in the years after, he proved it mathematically, and this led to his theory of relativity. As he concluded, innovation is not the product of logical thought, even though the final product is tied to a logical structure. Dr. Win Wenger also writes in his book, Geniuses are little more than ordinary people who have stumbled upon some knack or technique for widening their channel of attention, thus making conscious their subtle, unconscious perceptions. And the technique he invented to widen attention was image streaming. It originally was developed as a technique for accelerated learning, and it combined Einsteinian imaginative thinking with Socratic questioning. Now, we've already briefly explored Einsteinian thinking, but what is Socratic questioning? Socratic questioning is the use of disciplined examination to pursue thought in many directions and for many purposes. It can be used to explore complex ideas, to get to the truth of things, to open up issues and problems, to uncover assumptions, to analyze concepts, to distinguish what we know from what we do not know, to follow out logical consequences of thought, or if you're a coach, to facilitate and explore coaching discussions. Socratic questioning uses the principle that thinking has structured logic and that questions will expose the underlying thoughts to unlock the non-obvious answers and learnings. A study by Dr. Charles P. Roynott at Southwest State University delivered promising results in the increase of IQ intelligence through the practice of image streaming on a regular basis. His study highlighted an increase of 0.9 IQ points per hour of practice. And in that study, he had participants image stream on average 20.5 hours over the duration of his study. Longer-term studies and the effect of image streaming on intelligence has not been concluded beyond that. Dr. Wenger designed image streaming to be a conscious process. I've adapted the use of it to be used in light trance, and the intention is not to be in an hypnotized state, but rather to be in a light trance for relaxation purposes and the elimination of resistance of the conscious mind. It is particularly useful in coaching to extend your coaching clients' awareness to include their imaginative and unconscious awareness in developing possibility and options. It is also useful for exploring perspective changes over time to clarify questions and understanding. Now, I've spoken about the coaching process numerous times over the last few weeks. And in the structure of the coaching conversation, there will be an opening, there will be the contracting stage where you agree the outcome of the coaching conversation, and then you have the exploration stage. And image streaming as a technique is particularly useful in the exploration stage of the coaching conversation, because it's here where you need to expand the awareness and develop the possibilities to scenarios and developmental outcomes. An interesting perspective is offered by the author Kilroy J. Oldster, who writes, "They say that the personal transformation that gives rise to self-realization, the transcendent function that leads to the highest echelon of human attainment, takes place on the border between consciousness and unconsciousness, and that when we dream, we dissolve the boundary between consciousness and unconsciousness. In other words, we dream a world into being, and we are the collective product of our lifetime of immanent dreams." And in this context, immanent just means inherent dreams from within. This is what the technique of image streaming does for us. It allows us to dissolve that boundary between consciousness and unconsciousness. It allows us to tap into a wider awareness. Let's talk for a minute about how to connect with your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind is a part of you. It goes mostly unnoticed because of years of relentless indoctrination and focus on the rational and conscious mind. From the first day that you walked into school until the last day you walked out of an educational institution, you were taught the principles of rational thinking. You were sold on the importance of rational, conscious thinking. When you started work with the first company that you worked with, it was made clear to you how important rational, conscious thinking is, not only to you, but to your peers, your team, and the rest of your organization. And over time, we lose this connection to the wider unconscious awareness. Now, with practice and recognition, it is possible to bring more of the unconscious processes to conscious awareness. And sometimes it helps to welcome the unconscious mind almost like a separate and sensitive part of yourself and invite it in to become a part of your conscious and thinking processes. And through conscious effort and practice, it can become a productive part of your cognitive ability. Some of the guidelines that is really important in working with your unconscious is to be respectful and compassionate with that part of you that you may have ignored for a very long time. So let us do just a little exercise. As you are sitting down, wherever you are, being supported by the chair that you are in, just close your eyes, take a deep breath in and out, and just remembering to switch your breathing into the technique of velvety smoothness, where there's no pause between the in-breath and the out-breath and the in-breath, and in and out, and in and out. And while continuing breathing like this, just ask permission of your unconscious mind to freely and willingly join us in this journey of exploration, speaking gently, almost like acknowledging another part of you to join in thinking your world into being. And in your mind, just take the time to thank that part of you that is your unconscious. And take another deep breath in and out, and open your eyes and be here. Now, so in connecting with your unconscious mind, it is very important to relax, to breathe, to understand that you are building a connection to a part of yourself that over time you may have forgotten, and that you are welcoming back into your consciousness. So it's important to be compassionate and gentle and ask for permission for this part of your unconscious to join in into this symphony, which is your whole cognitive ability. And it's equally important to be respectful and grateful for your unconscious to participate in who you are becoming. And whenever you get the opportunity, thank your unconscious for helping. Now, there's a number of techniques which you can use to start seeing images in the mind. For some of us, it is very easy. You close your eyes and the images appear. For others, it's a little bit more difficult because you may have been neglecting your ability to connect with your imagination in this way. And a few simple pointers to see the images with the mind's eye is just simply, if you, and maybe you can just try it with me, as you are sitting there, just close your eyes and just see what comes to you. And if you struggle to see an image, just while keeping your eyes closed, just try and move your eyes almost as if you are looking upwards. And if you're brave enough, you can even sort of move your eyes into the position that it almost looked like you cross-eyed. And just notice what happens. Moving your eyes upwards involuntarily causes your brain to connect with the visual center. And often that's a way in which you can really quickly find an image to come to you. Some of the images that Dr. Win Wenger describes in his books is the use of an after image. An after image can be created in two different ways. You can open your eyes and you can focus on some bright light or sunbeam, or even if you're sitting in front of a computer, just look towards something that appears very bright on a screen and just look at it for about 10 to 20 seconds without blinking, and then close your eyes. And you should still see the shadows of that after image appearing to you almost like a picture. And sometimes all you need is a picture like this to start the images coming to you. Another way is to simply just close your eyes now and just take two fingers from each hand and just gently massage each eye with the tips of your fingers, just pressing down firmly without pressing down too hard, and just massage your eyes a little bit and then just let go. And the deformation of the eye, by applying pressure to it, as it returns to its shape, it also creates an after image for you. Some other ways of creating pictures is simply by just remembering an old story or an old memory or even a constructed memory. And you might remember not very long ago, maybe even as little as 20 minutes ago, you were walking down a path into a forest, which opened into a clearing. And you saw a beautiful valley with a river running through it. So simply by picturing a scene like that, you can start getting the image stream going for you. And of course, very important, you can follow the senses. Often, when you can bring to mind no picture, you can just start following the feelings, you can start following your senses, something that you smell, and see where that leads you. For example, something that always gets me going is imagining the smell of freshly baked bread, which almost lets you taste it. And thinking about how fresh bread smells so good and tastes so good early in the morning, where would you be eating fresh bread like that? and what is the picture that comes to mind. So sometimes if you struggle to see the picture, simply by starting to follow your senses, you can get your image stream started. Now, the interesting thing is, if you do feel or find yourself unable to connect with pictures, and in your recollection you've never been able to, you may be suffering from a rare condition called aphantasia. And it's a phenomenon that was noticed for the first time by a naturalist by the name of Francis Galton. And he did a breakfast study all the way back in 1880. And he asked 100 adult men to talk about the table at which they ate breakfast each morning. And he specifically asked for information on the lighting, the sharpness, and the color of the image in their head. And much to his astonishment, 12 of his subjects were unable to tell him much. They had assumed up till then that the phrase mental imagery was not meant literally. Fast forward to 2003, a 65-year-old man brought a strange problem to neurologist Adam Zeman, who is now a researcher at the University of Exeter in England. And the patient claimed that he could not conjure images of friends, family members, or recently visited places. Now, all of his life, he had loved reading novels and had routinely drifted off to sleep, visualizing buildings, loved ones, and recent events. But after undergoing a medical procedure to open arteries in his heart, during which he suffered a minor stroke, his mind's eye went blind. He could still see normally, but he could not form pictures in his mind. Adam Zeman and his colleagues began their analysis by testing the man's visual imagination in several ways. And compared with control subjects, he scored poorly on questionnaires assessing the ability to produce visual imagery. And fMRI scans supported his claimed inability to produce mental images. Now, generally, when people are asked to visualize a person, a place, or an object, there's a whole network consisting of various brain regions that is activated. And some of them are involved in decision making, others in memory, and yet others in vision. In this patient, the visual region showed very little activity, whereas those responsible for decision making and error prediction were very active and looked like you would expect in normal, fully functioning, healthy adults. Now, after Zeman's team published the findings of this study in 2010, Discover magazine reported on the findings, and that led to a number of people to come forward, all saying that they have never been able to create mental images. And after some further studies, which was published in 2015, the phenomena was named aphantasia. And of course, fantasia being the word that means imagination, and A means lack of. So I think that was a little harsh to call people that were unable to create mental images to have a lack of imagination. But the interesting thing is, even without this ability, people can lead normal lives and excel in creative professions where the ability to visualize is in high demand and is highly prized. If you find yourself unable to form pictures, whether it's because you've never done it and are just having a difficult time to do it, or if you are not able to form pictures at all, just in the exercises that we're going to be doing a little bit later, just follow your senses. And in your image stream, describe your feelings, your emotions, your senses, and your experience in that moment. What is the process for image streaming? This is a very simple process. It starts with just simply coming to presence. and let all thoughts go of any projected future you might understand to be in front of you, and especially let go of any memories that are troubling you in this moment. And there are many different techniques for coming to presence that you can find in the meditative tradition. And you may have learned a few with me over the last few weeks. And you might even have experienced one at the start of this session. And if you are sitting down right now, if you remember how you felt breathing at the beginning of this session, and just notice in this moment how you are inhabiting your body, that is a really easy way to come to presence. I was talking about the meditative traditions a few minutes ago, and the interesting thing is there are many different kinds of meditation. There's the passive type of meditation where the meditator aims to empty their mind or to focus on a specific mantra, to let go of other thoughts. But then there's also the more dynamic meditations, like, for example, guided visualizations, like a valley that you might have recently viewed after a walk through a forest. And image streaming is considered to be one of the dynamic meditative methods. All of these meditative methods requires the practitioner to come into a moment of relaxation and presence. The next step is then to set an intention for yourself. We learn from positive psychology that any time that you are starting from a positive intention, the likelihood of successful change or the likelihood of achieving a positive result to a question or an issue that's facing you is much more likely. I love setting an intention for myself every single time that I do an exercise like this. And I will give you an example of an intention that I perceive to be fairly positive. So I would set the intention for myself and say, I am really excited and curious to find new answers in doing my image streaming a little later. It is really important to start with a positive intention. A few years ago, I ran a session on image streaming at the South African Creativity Conference. And one of the visitors in the session had a very negative experience, and she saw a very dark future filled with death and destruction, and she spoke about seeing demons. A very valuable lesson I learned that day is that your intention will shape the image stream that you experience, and it is absolutely necessary to get any practitioner of image streaming to start from a very positive and hopeful intention. Because if you start from a place of darkness, it is going to take you even deeper into that darkness. Then the next step is, and this is an optional step, is to ask a question. You are very welcome, and you will have a perfectly good image stream if you simply close your eyes and you invite the images from your unconscious mind. But if you are looking for a specific solution or a specific outcome, as coaches normally would, working with their clients, you can state a question to which you are looking for a resolution or extended awareness about. And once again, what is very important here is to state that question in a positive way. The wonderful thing about the unconscious mind is it has a very literal understanding of any question that you ask. So if you ask a negative question, like, for example, why am I such a loser? The unconscious mind will happily go out, work through all of your experiences, work through all your memories, and find you a reason why. So the experience is also shaped by the form of the question. And it's very important for us as coaches, but it's also important for us as image streamers to phrase a question in a very positive and hopeful way. And of course, our unconscious mind will immediately get to it. Then we can start with the process of image streaming. And it's a simple one. You simply will close your eyes. You will notice whatever image comes to mind. And here's the important rules. You must describe the images out loud. And in that description, use all of your senses that you can possibly pack into your description. Now, traditionally, we talk about the 5 senses, and that's a good way to start. But there are many other senses beyond the 5 senses. But over time, you can start incorporating more and more of these senses in your description. And the reason why this is important is because, and we know this from studies on neuroplasticity, the more connections you can create to your senses, the more varied the neural patterns are going to be that form in your brain. So simply by describing a picture in the way that it looks will create for you a neural pattern or a neural pathway. But if you describe that picture and you not only describe what it looks like, but you bring in feelings, emotions, you bring in smells and tastes, the neural pattern that you are going to be creating is going to be a lot more rich and varied. Donald Hebb was a psychologist that was very famous for a theory that he developed, and he said that neurons that fire together wire together. Dr. Wenger was very fond of saying, yes, that is true, but we must also remember that a neural pattern created for one purpose can also be used for another. What he very elegantly said was that if you form a neural pathway or neural pattern in your mind for a specific purpose, there may be situations in the future when a thought arises, when an image arises, and you will use that exact same neural pattern for another purpose because it exists. And of course, we know through neuroplasticity that over time, the more time you spend thinking in a certain way, the easier and the quicker your brain starts processing that. So it's very important as you are describing your images out loud, it is very important to use all of the 5 senses initially in your descriptions and then gradually over time to expand that to include other senses beyond the 5. And then what is really important is to describe everything in the present tense as if you are experiencing it right now. The wonderful thing about techniques of scanning what is happening in the brain that has become more common over the last 20 years is the finding that whether you are actually experiencing something or whether you are mentally creating it, the same areas of the brain lights up. In your brain, it is indistinguishable whether something is actually happening or whether you are mentally creating it. And a good example of that is if you think about top athletes often will visualize an event or a competition or a stroke on the golf course many times in their minds without actually playing it. And yet, that mental rehearsal activates the same parts of the brain under a fMRI scan than if they actually played that shot or executed that event. So by describing everything in the present tense, you are lighting up the parts of your brain that would light up if you were actually doing this or actually observing what is happening in the present moment. So that was a lot of information. The process, let me just quickly talk through it again. The first step is just simply to come to presence. The second step is to set your positive intention. Then optionally, you may ask a question that is set up to be a positive question. And then you simply would close your eyes, you would notice the images, you would describe it out loud using all of the 5 senses in your descriptions and describing everything in the present tense. It's that simple a process. So, Tony, I know, and thank you very much for agreeing to just do a little demo for us of image streaming. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of talk through the process one more time. You can just have a look and see what Tony does, and you can just get a demonstration of how this process works. And I think you're going to be surprised how simple and straightforward it is. So the first step, and Tony, as I talk through this, you can maybe just follow with me. So the first thing is just simply to come to presence in any way that you know how. And a simple way is just to breathe and just to pay attention to your body in this moment. So that's a very easy way just to come to the present moment. The next thing is to set an intention, and that would be a positive intention. And Tony, you can set an intention for yourself for this image stream. And if you are comfortable, and you don't have to do this, if you are comfortable, you can share that intention with the group.
Yeah, it's similar to the example that you offered. What came to me is my intention is just to be curious about what my unconscious mind has to share with me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And is there a specific question that you want to pose to your unconscious mind that you want an answer to or want to expand awareness on?
Yeah, there is. The question is what should I do next?
Okay, that's always a good question. Anticipating the future. So I'm going to invite Tony just in a moment to just simply close his eyes and wait for the images to come to him. And just for people that haven't done this before, sometimes it just takes a few seconds, or it may even take a minute for images to come to you. And I know Tony has practiced this a lot, so it might be easier for him in this moment to invite those images. So in a moment, I'm going to ask him to just work with his image stream, describe for us out loud what he is seeing using his senses, and of course, describing everything in the present tense. So, Tony, when you are ready.
So I can see a black line, and the black line looks thick and fuzzy, like I'm looking at the border of where the floor meets the wall, and it's kind of a shadow. It's sort of turned into now what appears to be the wood you would see, the trim you would see at the bottom of a wall. And I can see actually if I get a little closer, or if I were to feel it, I could tell it's this, how wood carving or wood trim can have that smooth finish to it. It's varnished or stained in some way, and I can see all the ridges. But actually now suddenly the trim is quite large. I mean, more than 10 feet high, and I'm this tiny little figure looking up at this what could be like a museum mural but it's still this wood. It's really just like a scaled up version of the trim. And there's another observer with me, another person who is looking off to the left. And if I look to the left, I see some sort of brightness, this warm, inviting, um, um, I don't know, like a undefined opening of some sort. There's not a rigid frame to go through or anything, but I mean, it just looks like a bunch of light and now I can see, you know what it looks like? I'm looking at the back end of an eyeball, and I can see where all the nerve endings, from what I have seen of images of eyes, all the nerve endings are on the bottom right side. There's a darkness, and I can actually, it's pretty large, it's like a basketball, and if I touch it, it's like the strings. It feels like the strings of an instrument. These little wires or nerve endings that are attached to this eyeball looking thing, but the rest of the ball like thing is actually very smooth, and glassy, almost wet, like I imagine a giant eyeball might be. And all of a sudden it's sliced in half, and I can look inside, and it looks, I'm seeing what appears to be the inside of a pomegranate with all this organic matter, and or maybe like what looks like it could be lungs, like little capsules of energy, of perhaps oxygen or fruit. These little capsules. There's one little, looks like a little wire or a little string attached to each capsule of colorful, bright energy, and uh, and now it seems like those things are flying through the air like little little comets, and I can see it's just a black space, and these little comet things flying all over the black expanse in front of me, and they're going in all different directions, and I can see the tail, like a comet's tail, like they're little miniature comets, or I don't know, flying around. And
Okay, Tony, just finish that thought and then
mm,
just come to presence. Okay, I really apologize that I had to cut that experience short for you.
that was a good one.
It
That's a good
was.
journey.
It sounded really, really interesting. Yeah. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ask Tony one or two questions, and this is something that I've not clearly explained up to this point yet, but as a facilitator for someone else's image stream, the interesting learning also comes not only in the experience itself, but also in the debrief afterwards. So I could, for example, and I'm not going to go too deeply into this. I'm just going to ask Tony a question or two. But this is an interesting point to question Tony about his experience. So, and the intention here is not to have absolute answers, but just to take his thinking a level deeper. And often what happens is you could remember an observation and you are not sure of what it meant. And that might become a topic for a next image stream, for example. So, Tony, if I ask you about what do you think the big round ball meant to you? And what did it mean when it was sliced in half, that it almost looked like a pomegranate? What do you think that meant?
Just thinking now about it, I feel that it meant some unknown world or some unknown body of knowledge, and then when sliced in half, it's as if I've entered this body of work or this world of study, and what was revealed to me is something organic, something of an organic nature is what comes to me when you ask me that question.
Might there be another meaning for that or another observation?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. There could be countless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it did look a lot like an eyeball, which could have something to do with that. I've recently restarted my yoga practice, so I'm activating my third eye. I don't know. It could be any number of different things. Mm-hmm.
So what I'm gathering is that there might be an aspect of knowledge, new unknown knowledge, and you said it is organic, but you're also talking about restarting a yoga practice, and it might be something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony, thank you very much. That was a great demonstration of how to do image streaming. That is just a very simple way of doing image streaming, and maybe it's a nice way of asking a good follow-up question or two. And often what happens if there's something that you don't quite understand, it might be worth doing another image stream on it. And the reason for that is because your unconscious mind will communicate with you in a way that sends you images, feelings, memories, emotions, because it hasn't got a voice. Often what you might have to do is to have multiple image streams on the same question to find the message that your unconscious mind is trying to send you. But before we get into this too deeply, what I'm going to ask you to do is to, number one, I'm going to open that document that I sent to you, and I just want to give you one or two more tips or explanations around this process, and then I'm going to send you off into breakout rooms in pairs just to practice a very simple exercise for yourself. So we've talked about the 3 commandments of image streaming, which is really important: describing your images out loud, using your senses, and describing everything in the present tense. The reasoning for the pairs is that as you are talking, that you are exploring your image stream, but there's also a listener or a facilitator that can help and guide you in this process. And if you are working as a coach, you will be that listener or facilitator. If this is something that you want to do for yourself on your own, still very important to observe the 3 commandments. But then what you would do is you would record yourself. And fortunately, we all have these smartphones nowadays, which has a recording ability. So that's a very good way of recording yourself so that you can listen to your image stream later. The reason why you might want to listen to it later is because once you start with your image stream, it's possible that the richness of that experience can be so much that in describing it, you might not remember everything that you are talking about. So it's very useful to go back to the recording later and sort of almost do an analysis of everything that happened in your image stream. And from there on, of course, identifying what were the things that has meaning to you and how you can then expand that meaning by maybe doing some further image streams. There's some guidelines of key points which you can sort of follow on your own beyond this session. We're going to do one exercise and we'll see how that goes. So the first exercise that I'm going to send you away in pairs is very simply remembering either a familiar object and just image streaming about that, or if you cannot form an image of a familiar object, maybe just work with a after image. So either look at something bright and close your eyes, or just gently massage your eyeballs with the fingers of both hands. The process is very simple. I've put you in pairs so that at least one person in the pair has the description. How was that?
I could have talked for days.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah.
That's very rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask the other pair, Tony and Maria, how did it go on your side?
It was very vivid. I was able to describe a lot and I guess, use all my senses. So Tony expressed it because I've never done this before and experienced image streaming before. And he said, like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a very easy way of exploring images from the unconscious mind because it's actually a really natural process. In conclusion, image streaming is a useful technique to teach yourself and your coaching clients to explore imaginative ways of thinking in the coaching session and beyond. It is really wonderful, and I think you've experienced that, for exploring a combination of the senses, memories, experience, and deep thought. And I would encourage all of you to learn this technique, practice it, and just see the possibility it opens up for you. And then, of course, help your clients to discover the wonder of it too. Thank you very much for joining us on this journey. I hope to see you next week for quantum jumping.